Hey, you geeks. Welcome to Frankly K, and this is financial literacy. But also here, I do a bunch of other stuff. I don't feel like doing that whole spiel today. Let's get into it. I saw some news from Kepler magazine. My notes are over here, so you will see me looking. Maryland is going to be the first state to ban surveillance pricing. Many of you may know what surveillance pricing is by now because it's such a hot topic in the news and on the internet. For those that don't, I bet you do. It just wasn't called this before, or at least no one had, coined the term as widely before. For instance, when you live in a certain neighborhood, usually a poorer or working class neighborhood, you may pay more for the same items than someone who lives in a more affluent neighborhood. Crazy, right? Well, it's not unheard of. And the people like myself and others directly experienced this phenomena for years. I was once told by upper management that some of these prices are set the way they are where we were working so that they can combat some of the loss they get due to the theft. As if theft only happens in one demographic more than others, even though studies have said otherwise. Whether it is or isn't the case is not what we're discussing here. What we are discussing is the fact that the practice is now expanded into affecting more than just people who have less money than average and creeping into the neighborhoods that they pretend stealing doesn't happen in. So now it is a topic. So surveillance pricing is when companies take your personal data like search history, eye tracking. There used to be a big topic once. What happened? No one talks about it anymore. Location, demographic information. They take that aggregated data and they use it to determine just how much the average person will pay for an item. And then they change the prices with that information at the, corresponding locations, resulting in even a chain store like Rite Aid, Walgreens, Duane Reade, CVS, depending on where you are, having different prices for the same items across several locations, even in the same state. Now, with the internet and new POS, point of sales, like grocery stores that let you scan your items before you pay. So like the technology when they have the little scanner at the front of the Giant, if you're like in this East Coast area, or someplace like Whole Foods where they had a lot of scanning and a lot of, technology-based buying for the consumer. Those kinds of stores with that kind of technology, it becomes a whole new monster because surveillance pricing, it now really comes down to the individual, like the same concept when you're looking for travel tickets. And we all know by now, right? They always tell you not to search travel tickets like back to back to back, or open in too many tabs, or maybe try to use your private browser. Then they say the private browser doesn't work, stuff like that. So they'll send you higher prices depending on your urgency, how close it is, how many searches you've been looking for, Now that is kind of translating into more of this surveillance pricing that happens in grocery stores and other stores. It doesn't always have to be grocery stores, mostly just retail stores. So it sees all your information, how much you're willing to pay, and adjusts the price according to that data. So you could be in the same store with Willie Lump Lump and paying a third more than he does for the exact same item at the exact same time, on the exact same day, in the exact same room. So Maryland's Governor Westmore and his administration have introduced and finalized the bill that will be stamping this practice out more or less. Two things some of the articles pointed out that people have concerns about are that the bill also says that only the Maryland Attorney General can sue if a business is found breaking this law, doing dynamic pricing or surveillance pricing. They can only be sued by the Maryland Attorney General, and they said that might be a problem because the individual can't take it up with the company. And I get why they're doing it. I get that point, kind of to streamline it, maybe. But for the most part, I don't think it's too much of a concern. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like when you put in a complaint with the Maryland Attorney General against a business, action gets taken pretty swiftly. But somebody correct me if I'm wrong. There can be always different experiences in the same thing. But things that I've read, the timelines for when the Maryland Attorney General gets to business after receiving a series of complaints about a business doesn't seem as long as I've seen other things take in this state. So I don't think that's too much of an issue, but it's still an issue to raise nonetheless, because there could be really good reasons as to why maybe an individual should be taking this up with a business, or just the simple fact that everyone having to wait for the attorney. If there's like a mass of people, and then what if there's different degrees to how much they were affected by this dynamic pricing? Like, say you're a small business and the dynamic pricing or surveillance pricing that the person's illegally doing affects you with thousands of dollars a week versus an individual that may have been affected hundreds of dollars in a month. Leaving that up to the attorney general to do all of those cases might seem a little, and it might get a little backlog, but I think they're trying to keep the court system from getting backlogged, because if someone's illegally doing it, with all the businesses in Maryland, having all these individuals also suing these companies might slow down the processing of everyone's cases, in contrast to bundling cases, like small businesses against whatever, individuals against whatever, and being able to group them together because it's the Maryland Attorney General's office. That is my opinion on that. I don't know how practical that theory is playing out, but I'm just, talking about the concern, financial, legal concern. Someone who does corporate law, let me know, or civil law, I guess this would be. But anyway, I said Maryland Attorney General has a public line where people can report and file business discrepancies. So there's that. I'll leave that below, actually. Then there's the other concern, which is that there's a loophole for surveillance pricing that does not include, it's exempting the surveillance or dynamic pricing included in loyalty programs. And I believe that is in benefit of the loyalty program holders. Again, in theory, let's see about it in practicum, because the other side of surveillance pricing is that it can be used for what we more call dynamic pricing and the price of saving, meaning it calculates how much the average customer is spending on said product, and then it uses that information, the time, location, the urgency, and then it calculates a meaningful price difference for applying to the deals that they put in the loyalty programs. Now, that is the best case scenario of these loyalty programs. However, as always, with the good, there's the bad. And loyalty programs have already been under scrutiny. You guys probably have seen where loyalty programs aren't, really giving the benefits that they used to give. A lot of people were talking about the big airlines that were doing it, but, it could end up being retail stores and stuff where you don't really get the savings that you could be getting because they're just hiking up the prices and then giving you, like, the loyalty person the normal price, like the price that it should be for everyone, especially if you're online. So there's the possibility, right, suspicions that the prices are artificially risen on the algorithm for the loyalty program people, so that when they see like the cross out and your price is the loyalty person, it reads as something lesser than, but it's not even really the regular price. It's like it's a naturally inflated price so that the deal price looks like a deal. So like something's normally $8, but they'll say it's actually $11 and then say that they're giving it to the loyalty members for $8. Like, so that's one of the concerns about that. But I do believe if things are on the up and up for a normal day, that the exemption for loyalty programs is a benefit, not too much of a hindrance. Anyway, Maryland's ban becomes official on October 1st of this year, 2026. And a few other states here on the screen, they have simply made legislature that said that companies have to disclose when they use the surveillance pricing practices and tactics. And that's about all they did, which means nothing. In other news, the gas tax pause. Now, reportedly, some lawmakers have been calling for this gas tax pause since as early as March, like around the time where the war began. And I'm not going to get into party politics like it's a football game. All right, I'm not going to do that here. But for the sake of record, it was some Democrat lawmakers that started the ball and received nothing but pushback because GOP was busy pumping out the narrative that gas was not all that high on a national average. Probably because in their states it was still $2 or something. I don't know, but the national average was creeping up considerably the whole time. And y'all remember this gaslighting phase? Like, Some new lawmakers, some more lawmakers have proposed new proposals about this gas tax pause, but the Federal Highway Administration, I might have wrote that down wrong, but basically the Federal Highway Administration or whoever's in charge of like the infrastructure of the interstates and the highways and the roads and general project infrastructure, road infrastructure, they are worried about the federal gas tax pause. A lot of the projects, they're worried about the federal gas tax pause because they use that revenue for those projects. One lawmaker said that they propose that their state even jump in on the whole gas tax pause. So like states also pause your gas tax, and states will probably also be just as slow on the uptake because they too said that they use the gas tax revenue for road construction and highway maintenance and stuff like that. And they're saying they need all of it. They need these gas tax revenues to maintain all these infrastructure projects and the roads and everything like that and the highways. Fine. But then where's the toll money going? Where's the MVA money going? Where is the traffic ticket money going? They put like traffic cameras every 2 feet. Where is the property tax money going? Do they not also help? Is the revenue from these things not also helping the roads and the byways and the highways? What's going on? Where is the money going? But to stay on topic, the gas tax pause also has been criticized that it can't do much when the obvious is still at play. The obvious being the war in Iran and the blockade of the battle on the Strait of Hormuz. So the price of crude oil will remain unaffected by said pause, and more affected by the war in Iran over the battle over the Strait of Hormuz. Those are my notes. As that continues to rise, the crude oil price, so does the crude oil trading price. So does the price of oil at the pump. So shaving off taxes will lessen prices, but if prices keep rising, it kind of lessens the intended effect over the long term. So I can take 80 cents off of a $4.29 price tag, but if the base price continuously rises, how much saving is happening in the long run? And then analysts were saying that there is the idea that even these gas tax pauses, the federal gas tax pause, isn't even going to come and benefit the consumer at all, and that it could just get eaten up by the oil companies. So they'll still charge you $4.29, even though the federal gas tax is paused, and I think it's 18 cents for consumer and 20 cents or 22 cents or something for diesel. So the consumer, the truckers, whoever's at the actual pump, they're not going to see the actual savings because the companies themselves will just eat up that savings. Like, since they don't have to pay the federal tax, they're going to keep the price as if they would and then pocket all of that difference. That's what some analysts, who are paid to be skeptics say, because they need to bring up these real concerns. Because let's be serious. Are we really going to be surprised if an oil company eats up that savings for themselves and doesn't pass it on to the consumer? So anyway, and didn't he illegally seize one of Venezuela's oil sites? Why isn't that helping with gas prices? What was the point? What was the point in that? Like, what are they doing with that? And why isn't the flow helping? Why isn't the flow of oil that was supposed to come out of that helping anybody? Like, no one wanted you there. You did it anyway. You were proud about it. And then now it has dropped into a whisper because we're in the middle of a war with somewhere else. And we still haven't addressed what's going on down there. Someone in the industry let me know, is there different oil sites for different things? So like, is Venezuela not part of the crude oil pipeline to gasoline? Like the crude oil to gasoline pipeline? Are they more like the crude oil to resin pipeline or the crude oil to electricity energy pipeline? Like like anyone in the oil industry happen to be watching this channel, or do anyone just happen to have an interest in that kind of thing? And let me know if there are different sites, they do different things, or do all crude oil sites essentially differentiate? I guess it would go by company. My basic common sense says that each crude oil site would go by the company that owns it, or if it's like a state as in like the country owned operation. And so it depends on what that company or that state does. That's my basic common sense will tell me. Anyway, that's the news for today. I scrolled down on my notes and realized there's nothing left. So yeah, those are my 2 financial news for the day. Tell me, What's the gas price in your state and in your area? In my area, we're at about $4.50. Anyway, let me know. Do you dabble in crude oil? Like, should you invest in crude oil? Is that an ethically responsible investment? Maybe that's another topic. But thanks for watching. I want to try to do these financial news segments. I might do a topic segment here and there when I'm trying to explain a certain topic. But these financial news breakdowns, I think I have a lot of fun putting them together and presenting them. And I hope they're very useful, trying to get you some hot points to think about, things that affect your everyday life. Stuff to be aware about. That's part of financial literacy, like I always say, because what? Awareness and clarity means power. Thanks for watching. See you guys again.
Do you still love me or not? I need 7